All right, guys, back here on Southeastern 14 with Max Barr, sharing our thoughts on the official return of John Calipari to Lexington, Kentucky, to coach the Kentucky Wildcats for at least another season. And we'll talk about what that means here in a second, share our reaction, and I'm sure you guys will have plenty to say about that in the comments. Before you do, let's tell you about our friends at BetOnline. The tournament is here. BetOnline, your bracket headquarters for the season. They have the best bracket contest out there. Plus, they have the odds, lines, and info you need on every game and every round right up until the national championship, so you can access the most up-to-minute wagering information anytime from desktop or mobile devices. So head on over to BetOnline today, get in on the action. Remember, use that promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, Max, we're going to read it straight from the source himself. No additional sources needed. Mitch Barnhart, at UK Mitch Barnhart on Twitter /X. Here's what he had to say.
What do you got, Mitch?
As we normally do at the end of every season, Coach Calipari and I have had conversations about the direction of our men's basketball program, and I can confirm that he will return for his 16th season as our head coach. So he's back. And I mean, I think we all, the longer this thing went, afterwards, I said after they lost the game to Oakland, I'm like, this feels like the point of no return. I'm like, I don't know how the two sides come back together. People would use the word toxic. I felt like that was a good word choice. It felt like that relationship had gotten there between him and a decent portion of the fan base, but no move going to be made. And Cal returns, and it's going to be interesting because You pointed out something before we started recording. It's like last year maybe was a little bit different because they did win an NCAA tournament game last year, but I went into this season thinking this may be it in terms of this is sort of the last dance was this year. I think I called it Cal's last stand. But here we are again, and I guess we're entering another part 2 of the last stand for Cal Kentucky.
Yeah, and it's kind of complicated because I don't know if you saw I call it on 3. I think it's 1. The recruiting company. In my head it's on 3.
I like on 3 better.
1, I don't know. I'm calling it on 3. But their tweet is saying breaking, Calipari is returning. And then the top first few comments were like breaking ? Breaking. And so I feel like it was kind of split where it was breaking news for half the fan base, and it was breaking news. What? For the other half. I was a part of the breaking news. What? I kind of expected this. But, there was that uncertainty. I think for me, it was like right after that Oakland game, and when we did that reaction live the next morning, it was like, oh man, I don't know how we're going to return from this. But then as each day passed, my opinion kind of switched to, well, you got to make sure that whoever the replacement is going to be an upgrade. And then as the candidates just started to get smaller and smaller, it was like, well, man, maybe the best option is a return. But I know that a good portion of the fan base will disagree with me.
Well, the problem here, and I said this after the game, I said here's the problem is no matter what he does, I don't know how you're going to be able to convince anybody that things are going to change. Right. He did his radio show on Monday, which everybody thought was just kind of bizarre. They're like, okay, if they're going to make a move, this guy's doing his radio show on Monday. Yeah. Like, come on. It gave him a chance to say all the right things, which, it came across as sort of just I don't know, like it was almost like it was a public statement, really trying to say, hey, I know you guys are upset, but let me tell you all the ways that I think we're going to be able to fix this. And all of that. And again, I'm sure some people did not buy it, and that's their own choice. Some people I also saw tweeting me when I asked their thoughts on what he said, was basically, he says this every year. So again, you're going to have different opinions on what they thought about that. But I don't, unless there's just a drastic change, and some people are like, well, they can change, assistants, right? And I'm like, is that, it's a big part of your job, but is that going to convince everybody that things are going to change just because maybe you change assistants? I don't know. I don't know if that's what everybody wants to see. It's like, okay, well, if they bring Reed Sheppard back, everything will change.
Yep.
I don't look. He's a great player, and we talked about how he's just kind of been soaring up the NBA draft boards now. So I have no thoughts on whether he does or doesn't, but I think it's still one of those where you're thinking, all right, well, that's great, and they could maybe find more wins in the regular season, but what is going to be the thing that can change their postseason fortunes? Because that's what everybody wants to talk about. They have not made the Final Four since 2015. It is 2024, so that they are going to, the next time the NCAA tournament is played, it's going to be 10 years from the last time they went to the Final Four. And we know the expectations for Kentucky are not that. They've made the Elite Eight twice in that time span, just twice since 2015. Obviously the two first round exits, 2 of the last 3 years, and I don't know. Like that's the problem I think Kentucky fans are going to have with this is what can he do to convince me things will change? And I think the only way, and I'm not sure how you do this now because they have how many guys in their recruiting class coming in that are
6.
freshmen? So,
Well,
you
4
and I were,
and then 2 hard commits, but 4 definitely.
well, and you and I talked about it, it's like, I think your only choice now, if you're going to try something completely different and try to convince people that things are going to be different, especially when you get to March of next year, you've got to go out and build at least half your roster with nothing but seniors or grad transfers. Like, I just think that's the only way. Because otherwise, what are you going to say? Hey, all right, this freshman group coming in this year, it's going to be the one that makes the difference. Well, that's what we heard last year. And nothing against the class they have coming in, but I think we said it, this is one of the best classes he had on paper. Yeah. So it's a tough spot. But
well, I think one thing, for me, what would make me trust him again, would trust the postseason success again, I would just have to look back to the last time they really had a deep run in the postseason. You got to go back to 2019. What's different about that 2019 team than the past 6 years, 5 years? Well, they had a top 25 defense.
Yeah.
That's the difference. And so I know this team was, hey, from an entertainment standpoint, a regular season entertainment standpoint, Kentucky was one of my favorite teams in the whole country to watch. Just from like, oh my gosh, this team's playing a game tonight. I gotta watch it because I know something's gonna happen. Some guy's gonna go for X amount of points, or this alley-oop is gonna happen, or whatever. But the defense wasn't that, the physicality. And so finding that balance to where you have the shooters, the spaced out offense, the elite playmakers, the talent, but then also the physicality in the defense where you can put together multiple stops when the shots aren't falling. How he's going to go about that, we'll see. But it's not like too far out of the picture to say like, well, hey, let's go get 3 or 4 juniors, seniors, grads, that play really solid defense that can up our physicality. You go rattle off a few of those guys, and you can see, you kind of see the personality of the team start to shift into a little bit more of a defending, physical type of team. I think you can earn some trust back. That's just me personally. I don't know about everyone else.
Well, the numbers back you up here, because if we go through this and find the Kentucky teams that have had the most success, let's start in 2010, his first year there. They went to the Elite Eight. Just the defensive efficiency, they finished 6th in the country.
Yep.
Final Four the following year, 2011, they finished 16th. The National Championship team, 2012, they finished 7th. The Final Four team in 2015, they finished 1st. Of course, that was the 38-1 team.
Yep.
The Elite Eight team in 2017, they finished 7th. The Elite Eight team in 2019, they finished 8th. So you see the common denominator here. That's it. And all the other teams finished outside of the top 30-ish, it looks like, based on the numbers I'm seeing. So all the teams that didn't advance beyond the Sweet 16, well, the Sweet 16 team in 2018 finished 22nd. But still, that's a step further, than 112 this year, 68 last year, 36 the year before. So yeah, like the numbers fully suggest that that is a big part of this. And yeah, I mean, it's like you gotta have like identifiable roles on these teams, and I think sometimes it's like when we look at Kentucky teams, maybe more the recent ones, it's like the roles are just, hey, that's a great player, like, and he's just going to do a lot of things, and that's his role, right? But we asked the question too after the Oakland game. We're like, who is the defensive stopper? Even if
Yeah.
you say Reed Sheppard's a good defensive player, which we all agree with, but like, who's the guy that's just going to go out and just lock somebody down for 40 minutes? And they didn't have that on this year's team. And if you can add that to the mix, but again, I it's like you need to add that to the mix, but it can't just be one of your freshmen. Like, I think it's got to be somebody who's played a lot of minutes in college basketball, and I think how they approach the transfer portal. I mean, let's call it what it is. This is the most important
Oh yeah.
offseason he's had there.
Yep.
Because we're not. It's like, hold on a second. Let me be careful here. I was gonna say we're not gonna do this again. We may, but
Yeah.
I don't think we can do this again. So this time, I think it's pretty clear. But like I said, you will also have Kentucky fans saying, "Hey, you guys have said that every year. We say that every year, and here we are." But this feels different. I'll say that because I think it reached a point now where even last year, I'm like, they're not going to make a move. This year, I gave it a strong thought. I'm like,
Yeah.
they may make a move because that was just a frustrating finish, as we know, and so I am fascinated by what's going to happen here because you're going to have guys leave, like always, transfer wise. You're going to bring guys in. We don't know if certain guys are coming back, NBA stuff, all that. So we have no clue what this roster is going to look like next year beyond the incoming freshmen that are signed as of now. So that's all we got to go on, and it's up to Cal to figure out everything else around it because I am just so fascinated by how he's going to build this roster, knowing what's at stake here.
Yeah, that's almost the, if you want to look at it glass half full from a Kentucky perspective here, it's almost exciting because you're like, okay, this was probably the closest we've come to Cal to do a coaching change here. The pressure is at an all-time high. So the offseason should be expected to be executed with an all-time high in urgency and like, we got to get this right. And just, I might be picking at straws here, but like a big thing I'm going to be looking for this offseason is, do you add the physicality, and can we get back to that top 30 defense so we can make a little bit of a run? Last year, while this class, that freshman class was incredible, historic levels of talent, you only had one guy over 200 pounds. You had Bradshaw at 210. I mean, I know Big Z came in like halfway through the year, he's 220, but still like 2 7-foot lengthy guys. No one else over 200 pounds. You look at this class, I know they're still freshmen, but they're built a lot differently. Jaden Quaintance, right, Blake? Quaintance?
Yeah.
I'm going to get that name wrong 500 more times, guys.
Just call him Q.
Yeah. JQ. Oh, no, I can't do that. Oh,
You
God.
can't do
What did I
that.
just do? Quaintance. I'll get it right. 230. Stout, 230. And then Samto Cyril, 240. Like, we got some big physical freshmen coming in. It's not like
Bulking
this.
season in
Yeah.
Lexington.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's going to be a bulking off season in Lexington, and I'm excited for it. Give me a little bully ball here in Lexington. Come on.
Yeah, that's all we ask for here. Max
Yeah.
just wants bully ball. Okay, we love our bully ball here at Southeastern 14. We haven't seen Kentucky play bully ball in a long time,
Bring
so
it back.
you can still play good basketball playing bully ball, and I think that's what you want to see. And like I said, there are still going to be people I know who are just fed up with this whole situation. They don't want to go through this again with Cal, but we are where we are now. Unless you think he's gonna go take the USC job, then I think this is where we are at this point. So yeah, I think that it's locked in, and here we are, and we got to figure out how he's gonna rebuild this roster. And like I said, I think that is the most important thing. I don't think it necessarily comes with a coaching changes on the bench or anything. I don't know that that's going to push people too far in one direction. I think it's all about the roster and how you put it together. You find the common denominators that have worked for the teams that have had success in this era now. And if you don't do that, if you ignore, like we said, an area like defense or those kind of things, if you don't have somebody filling a role that you need on every single successful team, then you're in trouble. And that's on him. That's on the coaching staff to put together a roster that can do that. And they know what they have in front of them now, but they got to go out and every single top tier grad transfer, upperclassman transfer that's out there, they've got to give them a look. We always laugh about how Arkansas contacts everybody in the transfer portal, right? Kentucky needs to contact everybody in the transfer portal just to get an idea of, is this someone that can help us? Obviously, I'm half joking on that. They're not going to go after certain players that aren't going to fit or be able to succeed at Kentucky, but they need to do a really deep dive, I think, into, again, why is UConn where UConn is right now, right? Why are some of these other teams that have had success? They've got to. I think they've got to study those things with those teams because I don't think it's that hard. And also, let's also just say this real quickly. The NCAA tournament is not always the best indicator of, who the best team is, right? We say that every year. It's like sometimes the best team doesn't always win the tournament. Sometimes upsets are going to happen. But the problem is you're at Kentucky, and you've got to put yourself in a situation where the upsets aren't happening to you as often as they are now. And that's where I think it's understandable why fans are frustrated. But here we go. The last dance for John Calipari in Lexington.
My biggest thing this offseason is just, can this guy help us get back into the top 30 of defense? Can he help us do that? If the answer is yes, let's pursue. If the answer is no, well, we're making the same mistakes we've made the past few years. That's how my brain is working going into this offseason for Kentucky. I don't know if I'm crazy for that, if I'm too one-dimensional looking at the physicality and the defense. I'm just thinking, okay, what's the common denominator from these successful postseason teams? Let's get back to that. That's where I'm at.
Yep. I think that's it. Get an older team. You've got you've got a great foundation with the young guys they're bringing in. But I think, and the guys you're going to have coming back, like we said, they're probably going to be guys transferred. Happens all the time. But you've got to build your defensive foundation, I think, around the older guys. And that's going to have to be priority number one, I think, like you said, for Kentucky this year in Lexington. So there you go. There's some quick thoughts. I'm sure we'll be talking plenty about the Cats in the offseason as they start to make these roster moves. We will be talking about it, and we'll give more thoughts on kind of what our expectations are for Kentucky heading into next season. Although some people may say, I don't care what your expectations are because all I care about is what are they going to do next March. Can you tell me what they're going to do next March? I wish we could, but we can't. And that may be the problem that exists until a year from now, basically, is that there are going to be some fans who just are not going to buy it until we fast forward a year. So
don't blame them.
Can't say I blame them either, Max. So there you go. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Kentucky fans jumping in here. We cover SEC basketball, probably unlike anybody you've seen other than just, Kentucky basketball. We cover the entire league. So hit that subscribe button. A lot of other stuff coming on the channel. SEC football, we'll start to crank up some content there. Baseball, of course, too. So hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter. You see our handles there at @TheBlakeLevel, at Max Barr CBB. You can follow our Southeastern 14 account at 14 Southeastern. We appreciate you guys watching, as always, and we'll talk to you again here soon at Southeastern 14.